for those of you who have been following my message very closely, I cannot stress enough just how important it is to recognize that the one thing that RFK did when he ran for president in terms of his messaging that I agreed with 100%, and I hope you all did as well. The importance of recognizing the private equity takeover of our economic and political system, led by BlackRock, or more specifically in the real estate world, Blackstone, along with Vanguard and State Street. What they have effectively done is monopolize the housing market, in which case almost 60% of this nation in a short few years is not going to be able, in all likelihood, to be able to purchase a home of any kind. It's going to be owned by a private equity giant investment firm. They want to turn this country into renters, and that is the intention. So I'm going to play a clip that went viral the other day, and this will give you an idea of just how precarious our situation really is right now.
Researchers state that BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard are the largest shareholders with 88% of the S&P firms and more.
So right there, right off the bat, you have a very good idea of just how much money we're talking about. Hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars is in the hands of 3 private equity giants alone. And the only way something like that happens is if there is no regulation. Call me crazy, but I would assume that anyone with common sense would see that as a monopolization of the private equity industry, which of course it is. And it's also a complete manipulation of the economic and political system. To have that much control over the system, you think labor has any say in any of this? Of course not. And the problem we face is that both major political parties are playing a significant role in why these private equity giants are able to manipulate the system. If there's no regulation, who's going to do anything? This to me, and the gentleman's name is Gerald Celente. And he clearly has been around the block. I don't want to guess his age, but I'm going to say maybe 75, maybe even 80. He's clearly seen the trajectory in which our economic and political system's been going for quite some time. And I can assure you it's not going in the right direction. And on a day like today, we would assume that people would be smart enough to realize that because we do not enforce the Sherman Antitrust Act, the fact that we do not enforce any of the laws that have been on the books since the days of Teddy Roosevelt, who is, in my opinion, the best commander-in-chief we've ever had. You've had laws on the books for over 120, almost 125 years. And they could be enforced easily. But who's going to do it? Remember, at one time, 1 out of every 3, close to almost 40% of all employment in the United States, from the days of FDR to the beginning of Reagan, that is how many members were in unions. They had collective bargaining. They had the ability to fight back against the monopolization of our economic and political system. Today, it's just over 10%. I think it's 11% of the workforce in this country is part of a labor union. And Lord knows they make it very difficult for you to get into one. But this is the state of our economic system. And let's not forget, one of the bigger problems that exists in federal unions today is the fact that the bosses and delegates have a completely different philosophy than the rank and file. The rank and file doesn't want to be lapdogs for the Democratic Party establishment. They want to be able to collectively bargain outside of that two-party system. So the Democrats have to come to them, not the other way around. You give up all your leverage if you do it that way. That in itself is a huge part of this. And that is how we get to a point where, because we have continued to kick the can down the road, now people are never going to have an opportunity to own a home. We'll continue.
Morons and fucking imbeciles call this an equity market, a stock market, America, the land of opportunity. Who the fuck are you kidding? 3 companies. And as he said, Kennedy, it's really one big company, own 88%. The crime syndicates running America. And as them buying up houses, Redfin said in 2023 that investors bought up 26% of affordable homes.
1/4 of affordable homes in 2023. Remember, the goal is 2030 to own 60% of the single-family homes in this nation. 1/4 of the of all homes in this country that are considered affordable have been bought up by private equity giants Blackstone, State Street, and Vanguard. They now own them. And as I always like to point out, after the Israel lobby, our Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, her second biggest contributor is the real estate industry, led by Blackstone. I will not rest until every single person in South Florida knows this. Because this is the reason you will never be able to afford shit ever again. Because we don't hold our elected officials accountable. We just don't. There is apathy, for sure. But knowing the truth about why this is also of tantamount importance. And I would say this to anybody who is on, let's say, the political right, who believe in complete deregulation of the economic markets, which is it's a Peter Thiel wet dream in many ways. If you don't have a balance, this is what you're going to get. There is no benevolence, which is why I don't believe in communism. It's the same thing. You cannot stop human behavior, but you have to curtail it. You must curtail it. Otherwise, the complete monopolization and the complete decimation of our economic and political system is on full display. And what better day to prove it than a day like today? If you give a damn about our future, you would recognize that it's all about labor. That is the only way forward. There is no other way. And I believe in the free market. So I'm not some hippy-dippy leftist who doesn't believe in going out and, learning a trade, earning an income, and providing a service to your community or abroad, and so on. I believe in it all. But I also am not stupid. And this has got nothing to do with centrism either. I have one rule and one rule only when it comes to the starting point of anything related to who I will and will not support politically. One thing, and one thing only. Are you corrupt or are you not? That's it. After that, we can have a conversation and figure out exactly what is and isn't essential to our political discourse. There's a reason I love Thomas Massey. And I don't agree with everything that he stands for at all. But you know what I know for sure? He's not bought. And he's on AIPAC's hit list. And they're going to keep coming for him. And he's going to keep standing on principle. That's what we need. He doesn't believe in this shit. That's real libertarian values. You either have principles or you don't. If you don't see that this is what is effectively destroying this economy, I don't know what you're looking at. This was RFK's tour de force as a candidate. And it was the one thing he talked about that corporate media would never touch. And why would they? Because they're funded by these very people that are destroying this entire country. You can focus on all of the crazy stuff that he said. You can focus on the fact that he's as big a Zionist as anybody else. But when his economic message was sound and clear, like it was on private equity, you never heard about that in the media. Ever. Because it's crossing the third rail. Let's finish this out.
That began, by the way, back in the Panic of '08. when there was the subprime mortgage crisis. The bankster bandits who got $29 trillion bailout, according to Bard College leaving.
Tell me why they got that money. Because if there's one thing I agree with the libertarians on, the banks should have gotten nothing. The ones who sank this economy should have gotten nothing. And if that meant that we had to start over again, then so be it. That is infinitely less painful than having an economy that doesn't really exist. And need I say more? Look at what happened with GameStop. You are too big to fail. You could do no wrong, and you can continue to sink this country into the seventh circle of hell, and no one's going to stop you. If you were saving something during the 08-09 crisis, you saved the auto industry because there's a commodity there. You save the banking industry, there is no commodity. They just make up shit. And I'm not going to get into the whole debate about whether or not we need to attach our currency to anything like a hard asset like gold, because we can simply print money if we choose to. At the same time, who's getting that money? The people who run the show. That's who gets it, not us. We don't get anything. Rugged individualism for everybody else, corporate socialism for everyone who runs the show. That's it. And that is what Mr. Celente is pointing out right here, and he's 100% correct.
The Institute at Bard College. Hey, you don't have a job? You're deep in debt? Don't worry about it. Sign over here. You got a subprime mortgage. So all these foreclosures that happened, the banksters, Blackstone, one after another started buying them up. And that's what the country's become. As I said, when I was a young man, there were grocery stores, hardware stores, stationery stores, drug stores. Now they're all chains.
He's right. They are all chains. And when people make jokes about, for example, the bodegas in New York City, that's not a joke. I know they try to make it seem like it's a joke, but the real joke is that we have completely lost our economic and political system. And we've lost it to the very people that are funding these political parties. Remember that clip we played last week of Chris Cuomo at the DNC showing you everybody in the United Center who was up in the luxury boxes? Those are, I can't even begin to imagine how many of them are part of a private equity giant. And that is exactly who runs the show.